Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. The SNPGreen Government want to push the trans rights movement down everybody's throats all the time. This was why they were so keen on bringing in the Gender Recognition Bill, why they are saying that children must be taught this, why they push sexualisation of children at a very young age. And whilst they are pushing the rights of one very small minority group, they are in fact trampling over the rights of everybody else. They are harming women, they are harming female staff in prisons, they are harming vulnerable prisoners in prisons. Why? Because of this collective idea that for some reason men that want to be women can be treated as women. The trouble is, of course, they will never ever be women. They will simply always remain either deluded men with a fetish or mentally ill. Takes your pick. We'll take a look at this to see why it should be rejected and why so many people think it is so wrong, and yet the SNP and the Greens keep wanting to push it. Here goes. So, terrified female inmates and prison staff living in constant fear of physical attacks and abuse by burly trans men. No man, no one whose genes are XY should ever be put into a female prison. Don't care what he feels like, don't care what he wears, I don't care what he wants to call himself. He is a male, he remains a male, he will always be a male. There is no point ever in treating him as anything other than a male, and especially if he's committed a crime. Many of these men only want to go into female prisons because they think they're going to get an easier time. Well, if they truly want to be women, let them dress up as women, but put them into a male jail and see how quickly that changes. A bombshell report that the Scottish Prison Service tried to keep secret shows that female inmates are distressed, frightened, annoyed or irritated by men who pretend to identify as women, particularly when they still have their male genitalia, which, to be honest, is 99.9% of them. They call it transitioning, which is the term they use to say, I'm never ever going to cut my cock off. And all of them do, as it says. A secret report, and of course they wanted to keep it secret because they don't ever want the truth to come out, because the truth destroys everything that they stand for, reveals that vulnerable female inmates are living in fear of transgender prisoners, many of whom are manipulating the system to get into a woman's jail for easy time. The bombshell revelations show traumatised women are terrified of being abused sexually by male offenders who claim to be transitioning, but who aren't. One prisoner said they wanted to be in this hall because they wanted to have sex with lots of lassies, and that's exactly what it is. You're getting someone, a man, and you're locking him up with vulnerable women, and what the hell do you think is going to happen? Their concerns are contained in a review on transgender prisoners that was not made public by the SPS bosses. And despite the worldwide outcry over double aura of women Adam Graham, the SPS has said it will continue to place men in female jails so long as they have no history of physicality towards women. Wrong answer. No man should ever be put in a female jail, regardless of what he wants. The Isla Bryson scandal saw burly, tattooed Graham, who only changed his identity after he was charged, was sent to Cornton Vale Women's Prison before being moved to the male estate amid an outcry from a stunned and horrified public. And we covered that no end of degrees. This guy has committed so many crimes against women. And then they think, oh, let's lock him up with women. That's a great idea. Why? Well, we don't care about the vulnerable women in prison, but we do care about the screaming wankers of the likes of Stonewall, who might call us names. But, if a few women get attacked or hard or whatever, that's fine. That's a price worth paying in their minds. The affair contributed massively to the resignation of Nicola Sturgeon, a woman who really doesn't care about women. The SPS promised to review its stance on trans prisoners, but the new policy, which will start on February the 29th, has infuriated critics who say bosses are still failing to consider the safety of female inmates, many of whom have suffered lives of physical, sexual and domestic abuse. The report, obtained by the Sunday Post, contains shocking claims about trans prisoners refusing to take their female hormones, boasting about their sexual prowess, and returning to live as men once they're released back into society. One inmate said the last one to get out is now back living as a man. And before that one that got out, another one began living back as a man. And when he was in our hall, he was telling people, I'm stopped taking my medication because I can't get an erection. Women also told how they feel intimidated, with one prisoner saying of a trans inmate, if I was to have an argument with them, I would feel at risk because that's the strength of a man. I've been hurt by a guy before. And this is what you're doing. You're locking up very vulnerable, often the victims of abuse themselves, these women. And you're locking them up with strong, perhaps physical men who will do them harm, who mean to do them harm. And all because you don't want to be seen as a bit of a transphobe. No, but I tell you what you are. You're a hater of women. You know, you're a misogynist. Anyone who locks a man up with a vulnerable woman is a misogynist. And if that man goes on to harm that woman, every person who's responsible for locking that man in that prison must be prosecuted alongside whatever the man's done. And so that means every warden, every guard, every law officer who said that this man needs to go into a woman's prison stands in the dock with them and gets the same amount of time. The Sunday Post says the SPS review uses the controversial term cis to refer to women who are non-trans. I find that offensive. That's a terrible term. The term for women who are not trans is women. The term for women who are trans is men. To call anyone a cis is an insult. It is degrading, and it must be treated like that. It also describes prison staff as transphobic if they voice concern about transgender prisoners in women's jails. So standing up for a woman, a vulnerable woman who's being threatened and harmed by a man in a prison is now transphobic. Rona Hotchkiss, a former prison governor, has written to the new head of the SPS, Theresa Medhurst, to express her fury about the secret research. She told the Post, why was this research never issued by the SPS? Is it possibly because it's hopelessly biased and poor quality, or hopefully it would increase pressure on them and the SNP government? She said it was abundantly clear that many female prisoners are by turns distressed, frightened, annoyed, irritated by the presence of men who pretend to be women in women's prisons. They are particularly scathing about men who still have male genitalia, and that is almost all of them being in women's prisons. Men who did not identify as women before they were arrested or came into prison, and men who no longer identify as women when they get out. Here's the deal. I got a great deal for you. If a man wants to go to a woman's prison, let him. But the rule is this. Before you go into an operating table and it's all cut off. Let's see how many then want to go into a woman's prison. I suspect there'll be a lot fewer. Coming up. So yes, this research was kept secret because of course it was. Because if that was published, everyone would see that putting a man in a woman's prison was loathed and hated by every inmate and by every member of staff. But that goes against the policies that they're trying to push. It goes against normal common sense. And so they would be seen as being actually harming women directly. But if they covered up this research, they covered up this report, and nobody saw it, and it never saw the light of day, then they could say, oh no, it's perfectly fine, and everybody's happy with it. But turns out, everybody is not happy with it. And so it must have really gutted them when this was being leaked, and now everybody knows. And yet they're still going to try and push it, aren't they? Because they're all perverts. That's what the P stands for. Peds, perverts and predators. If you vote SNP, you're voting for this. Well done you. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. I will speak to you later. Bye.